Is a trick to making sure that whatever character you're installing for your project doesn't break your game, or in general, when you're importing assets from anywhere. A lot of the times they come with a bunch of extra stuff like sample scenes and sample codes and things like that you actually don't want in your game. So, a way to make sure that you have only what you need, which trims down your product size, which is ideal, and making sure that everything is functional before you import it into your project, is to open an empty project and then import whatever you're importing. Take that project and then export a custom package that has only the stuff that you want in it, which is kind of what we did when we made our own little custom package for start screens and all of that stuff. So if you're going to the asset store and you're looking for, I'm going to look for characters under 3D, and I'm actually going to drag the asset store out and make it bigger so it's easier to see. So it's kind of like a window now. Alright, so we're looking for characters. You can see tons of stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and whomp, take it all the way down to free. I could have clicked the button, but I don't know. Dragging the slider to free makes me happy. And then you go through and you pick whichever one you want. And this is also a good way to test the character before you actually put it in your product to see if you do actually want it. I'm going to be using this one. Two reasons. One, because her stripy leggings really, feel like they go with my kind of Halloween spooky vibe. And also because she is probably one of the most complex characters on the Unity market. I know she has everything I need. She has way more stuff that I don't need. But I figure if you're picking out anything online, I will have like the worst case scenario to show you, and you will have a very trimmed down, clean version of it. So I'm going to go ahead and go to her page. And then, as per usual, once you're here, there should be an import button. It might have you log in and do all of that stuff. But I'm just going to import her because I've already downloaded this before. I'm going to import all of it for now because this is my empty project that I will delete later. So I'm going to import all. Click all just to make sure, and then import. And something to note is that the projects, whenever they are broken on import, a lot of the times there are notes about it. There's like in a README file or in the comments on the asset store, there are reasons or ways to fix it. This particular one is broken. I have tested it already, but it's a simple fix, and the answer to fixing it is actually in the reviews, in the top reviews. So alright, we've got this in here, and you can see there is an error here. It says that there is a namespace or policy that does not exist, and this little notification that says there's a negative time keys. What I'm going to show you is if I were to look at the asset store again, if I scroll down here, there is one that tells me that there's a compile error there. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but there was one that says you just need, oh, here it is. Go to console, double click the error message, open the code file, and just comment the code using system.security.policy. And that will clear up the error, which I did test and it does work, so I'm just going to go ahead and follow those and go here, and it'll open up Visual Studio. And it's already in the right spot, so I'm going to comment that out, save it, close it, and I should be good now. Yep, it's gone now. So Unity2 has just like a million things in here. We've got all kinds of extra stuff. So let's look at this. There's a sample scene that was already in our project. We've got our model. We've got a splash screen for her that's all fancy. What we actually want, though, is we want to find in Prefabs, there is Unity2 herself. I'm going to drag her into my project. What I have here is I have my character imported, and she's pretty basic for right now, but whenever I look at her right here, she's already all set up with a variety of different scripts that control her behavior. If I look at her Animator Controller, I have just literally so many. So right here, this is every type of animation she could possibly have. These are different poses that she can use. If I want her to do any different type of actual movement, though, I need to use a different um, Animator Controller. And right here there are several. So I'm going to use Locomotion here because I know that this right here will control her speed. So if I look at the Locomotion, this is all set up so that if she goes a certain speed, she'll walk or she'll run. And if I use this as her controller, if I hit play, she'll just sit there idle because that's going to be the basic state. It's just idle. So you can see her swaying kind of side to side. And there is the ability to jump, which I definitely need, and it is a bool, so if she is jumping, then that will be set to true, and then we'll turn it off whenever it's not true, which is basically how we handled using animation in our other game. And the speed that she's going, so if I set this speed to 1 all the time, she's already running for me, which is great. I want them to be automatically running at the very beginning. So now that I've tested it out, I've made sure it works, and I have fixed my little error code. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to Assets and then Export Package. And yours might have a lot less stuff in it than mine does, but if it doesn't, if it's a ton of stuff, then this is the way you narrow it down. So just check all the things that you want in it. I don't want this extra scene section. These are all stuff that I don't need. I do need, however, the scripts because that controls her actions. I do need these animators just in case. And I'm going to leave that on there. So once you've narrowed down to only the stuff you want and taken out any scenes or extra things you don't, you'll click Export to create your custom package. I've already actually exported a package for myself, so I'm not going to do it again. But that's what you need to do to clean up a file before you import it into your game. I'm going to close out of here. I'm not going to save. And another trick that we need to do is we've made kind of an empty project and now it's just taking up space on our computer. So if we want to make sure that that doesn't happen, we want to find where we save our projects, and mine was, I didn't even name it, I just let it be New Unity Project. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to move that straight to the trash. If you don't know where your folder is, it's fine. Whenever you're on your hub here, you can click the 3 buttons, and instead of Finder, it'll say Explorer because you're on a Windows computer, but that will pop it on there. I'm actually going to remove this from my list as well because it doesn't exist anymore, so I don't want to confuse it any more than I have to. And as to importing your character into your game, open up your game, and then you're going to import the custom package that you have exported. So in importing packages, you do it import, assets, import package, and then custom package. And then find the place that you've saved it. I believe I put mine nice and neat inside of a game design folder. Alright, so you need to get your project or get your character imported. And once you do, import it from your special package. If you place it on your screen, you want it facing to the right so that whenever we use it, we're running, and then I have to fix my console error before I do that. But so what you should have is Unity-chan or a ghost or whatever stuck on there, and then worked this time. Don't know what was going on the other time, but you can see all the different things that I can do. I can change her face basically, and I can change what pose she's doing from here, which is nifty. I'm not planning on using any of these poses, but it's fun. Because like I said, Unity-chan has a ton more stuff that you don't really need to have. On this, I'm going to throw her Locomotion in here as her Animator Controller. And for Locomotion, on parameters, I'm going to go ahead and set speed to 1. Now what this does is it just says natively the animation is going to start playing at a speed of 1, which means she is running. And I actually feel like this is a good speed, but you might need to tweak how quickly your character is moving. Fiddle with maybe how fast your background is moving and like what kind of feel you want to give your game. So right now I'm happy with that. She's running, she's planted on the ground and constantly moving at the right speed. So now what I need to do is see kind of what her running to jumping animation is going to look like. So if you click on the little arrow here, you can actually play that animation to make sure that that looks good. It should, because there are assets on a store space that are designed to be like finished products, so it should look okay. But that's how you can preview that in case you weren't sure. Now that you have your character on your scene, we need to give it some programming. I'm going to collapse down all of Unichan stuff, and we need to create a script. Right click, create C# script. We're going to call this, let's see, we'll call this player, like usual. So our player script is going to be applied to our player character. I'm going to go ahead and just pop that right on there. And here we have a fresh script. So we know that her animator is already all set up, so we need to get access to that within our script at the same time as telling our game what kind of inputs we need. So let's say up here we need to set a animator. So if we go to, we can type private, it's an animator, and we'll call it player anim. That's usually what we call animators, something with the prefix that names them, and then animator. And then with this, now we know that we'll be able to control her animations at the same time. And then next we'll need to set up some script telling it if I press a certain button, then we jump. Actually, I do need to do a little bit more setting up because I'm also going to be setting up how to actually jump. And to do that, I need to get access to the Rigidbody, which I'm going to serialize just to see that it's connecting properly. This should all look familiar because we just did this in the last game. Player rigid. And we do not want a bunch of double jumping, so let's go ahead and, just like in our last game, we're going to set up a bool for is grounded, just to make sure that it is grounded. Alright, so let's set up our jump. So again, as I was saying, if input dot key down, and then our key code in this case, we definitely usually want to use space, so let's go ahead and just say key code space, and those are all closed. And then what we are going to do is fill in our if statement. Whenever we do that, we want to take our player rigid and we want to add force. And we're doing the same thing as we did before. So new vector 3, remember it's a vector 3 now, 0, we'll say 5, and 0. And then comma, we want to set our force mode, and let's go with impulse for now. And close off that statement. So we've got that in update. Actually, let's go ahead and refactor this. So remember, you can select it and right click and quick fix extract method. And I'm going to call this new method player movement. It's always best to be descriptive with your movement name or with your method names. All right, so we want to check also before we jump to see if we're grounded, but before we do that, we have to set up a tag so that we can check for whether or not we are grounded. And while we're at it, we can actually check and see if our character is jumping now. So if I were to hit play, should be able to hit space and jump. Null reference. Oh, right. Haha. You know, when your teacher makes silly mistakes, it happens to us all, right? So I'm going to grab my Rigidbody on here somewhere. Now, because I've downloaded this, it's hard to find the Rigidbody. on here. I may even need to add a rigid body on here. So let's go ahead and do that. A rigid body. If I were to do this, ooh, she fell through the floor. So that was silly of me. Obviously, I paused for a second just to workshop it without the timer running, and I had forgotten to give her a collider. So now that she has her rigid body and her collider, whenever I hit play, she runs and she doesn't fall through the floor, which is great. That's what we need. Now, if I hit space, she jumps, but you'll notice she's still running while she jumps, which isn't necessarily awful, and this character is made well enough that whenever they're running, you can see her hair is reacting to that movement. But I'd like to play the jump animation while she's doing that. So let's go ahead and set our plane. It's untagged. Let's give it a tag. We're going to call it ground. Save that tag. And we have to go back here and tag it as ground. And in our script, you'll remember from our last game that we need to have a collision to check for it, and whenever it collides, make sure that we check if it's the right thing we're running into. Because later we'll want to make sure that if we're running into obstacles, that we also have those tagged as obstacles and they create a different set of events happening. So on collision, enter. If collision.game object.tag equal parentheses ground, and we're looking for a bool also for is grounded, which we haven't really set up yet. Is grounded equals false, and if all of those conditions are met, we're going to do this other thing. So let's make sure is grounded is set to true as of start. So let's go to say equals true. And then in here, we need to say what's going to happen. So if we touch the ground object, we're going to set is grounded equal to true. And down here, underneath this, we're going to set is grounded equal to false. Oh, compiler errors. What have I done? Oh, I have a slash here. Where did that even come from? I can still jump forever. And you know, what I think I've done is I've made a silly mistake. What I need to do is I'm checked right here to see if I was grounded and that was false, but I never checked if I was grounded on the space button, which is what I actually need to check it on. So, just like above, and is grounded is equal to true. Remember, 2 equal signs or else it does not work. So we have this set up so that the player movement calls this, and then if we press space, we get to jump, and is grounded is true. It sets it to false so that we can't enter an infinite loop. So let's double check and make sure that that works now. Oh, I've got the plane turned off here. And I'm running. If I hit space a bunch of times, I can't jump. You can see is grounded flipping on and off over here. Perfect. Everything is working as intended. So we're all good there. Now we need to deal with our animator. So right now we have our animator set up so that we're just running. But what we need to do is we need to set it up so that our character, whenever we hit the space bar, we run the jump animation. So if I were to look at this, you can see that I'm going to actually change this. I'm going to make my locomotion my default state. And locomotion will be good. Okay. So we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. I want to make it so that I can transition into this jump state, which you see I've already got here when it's a bool that is triggered, because if it's a bool, it's a checkbox. It'll turn on the jump animation, and then it'll turn it back off. So I need to access my animator, which I've started to set up. I've got my private animator player anim right here, and I need to tell it to switch that animation on to jump and then switch it back off so that it doesn't keep looping infinitely. So where do we jump? We jump right here. So at the beginning of this statement, I'm going to add player anim dot set bool, and then inside of here, I need to set what the name of it is. It was spelled just like this. It needs to be the same capitalization. Whatever it is on your particular character needs to be what you use. And then I put a comma, and then the condition that it needs to switch to is true. So let's just save this and see how this works. So when I hit play, and I hit, oh, never mind, hang on. I haven't set in my animator in here. Oh, I've made another silly mistake. I need to grab that animator. Player anim equals get component. And it needs some brackets in here, and inside of the brackets I need the animator, parentheses, semicolon. Oop, okay. Can't access a component if we don't know where the component is, right? Makes perfect sense. So now when I hit play and I hit space, you can see now we're jumping infinitely, which is not what we want. Instead, now we need to switch it off whenever we are back on the ground. So as soon as we get back on the ground, we're going to switch player anim dot set bool, and then we're going to take jump, and we're going to give it the false property. So now when I hit play, hopefully, whenever I touch the ground again, jump, ground, and we're back to running. And you can even, if you look at the animator, you can see locomotion running, and then whenever I hit space, it switches to jump, plays it, and then it goes right back to locomotion, which is perfect. That's what we want. Next step, we need a reason to jump. So after all of this work, getting our character all set up and pretty and jumping the way it needs to, now we need to make it so that obstacles are going to fly at our character from the right side of the screen to the left side of the screen, and then we jump over them. Eventually we'll make it so that each time you avoid an obstacle, you get points and things like that. But right now we have nothing to dodge, so we need to go ahead and set up our obstacles and get everything imported there. So make sure you go ahead and source your assets that you're going to use for your obstacles. They should be files, I believe DAE or FBX files are the best for Unity. So make sure you get those. Remember, you can use Kenny to find some, and I'm going to use an asset pack called the Graveyard Pack for mine from Kenny. Because it's kind of a spooky sort of set. It's a little bit brightly colored, but I can always edit that later. So go ahead and go source your obstacle stuff, and that's what we will come back to next.